Behind the warm car window, he. On the drenched street, she, worn shoes, head held high. Two worlds that never meet until something within him shifts. What if one gesture pierced the rain and altered everything? What price dignity when money is never scarce? An offer, a moral boundary, and an encounter that redefines success. Ready to discover what happens when courage and compassion share the same umbrella? The spring rain falls over Chicago as if to cleanse the entire city, yet only manages to transform sidewalks into dark rivers reflecting the traffic lights. Ethan Montgomery is stalled in traffic on Michigan Avenue, gazing through the armored car window as his driver grumbles about the downpour. He is returning from a meeting at a corporate tower construction site in River North, one more among the many his firm erects throughout the district, and feels a heaviness that has nothing to do with the overcast sky. He no longer trusts embraces that reek of signed contracts, nor smiles that ignite upon discovering his surname. Money bought comfort, but stole his ability to discern genuine regard. Trapped between wet bumpers and impatient horns, he observes a woman crossing the avenue on foot. She wears a drenched olive green uniform, her worn shoes allowing water to rise to her ankles. She carries a plastic bag with gardening tools in her right hand and holds her cell phone with her left, shielding it from the rain as if it were the only thing that matters. Her demeanor strikes him like something long forgotten, dignity in its rawest form. There is no feigned haste nor staged shame. She simply crosses, head held high, as if the entire city weren't observing her ruined shoes. Ethan feels a tightening in his chest. He recognizes that kind of resolve. He once possessed it, before learning to dress as others expected. The driver honks, impatient, eager to seize a small gap in traffic. But Ethan raises a hand, requesting silence, and continues to observe. Helena has already reached the opposite sidewalk, but does not rush to seek shelter. She stops beneath an awning, opens her bag, checks if her tools are dry. There is a meticulousness there, an attentiveness Ethan hasn't seen in years from the people surrounding him. It is as if each object in her hand possesses a name, a history, an importance. That woman is Helena Rodriguez, a landscaper for condos in Gold Coast, known for accepting jobs others refuse because she needs to support her grandmother, Grandma Sophia, and her teenage brother, Leo. That week, her employer withheld payment with the excuse of subsequent settlement, attempting to force her into signing a contract without guarantees that would prevent her from charging for overtime or materials. Ethan did not ignore the unease. He recalled Lincoln Park, where as a child he fled his father's business luncheons, discovering that trees and silence offered a calm impossible to purchase. This was the very park he had been attempting to restore through his foundation, an initiative to give back to the city. Yet it dragged on amidst promises, spreadsheets, and meetings leading nowhere. The contractor for the execution, Arthur Sterling, had for years been an ally of Chicago's connected elite, efficient, well-networked, solution-oriented. Simultaneously, Serena Vance, the director of communications for both the company and the foundation, carefully cultivated Ethan's image as a modern benefactor, maintaining open doors for sponsors seeking visibility and features in high-end magazines. Seeing Helena disappear around the corner, wet and resolute, Ethan made a decision that surprised even him. She represented something he had lost and needed to reclaim: the certainty that work can be honest, that effort can be visible, that individuals exist who do not compromise principles for comfort. The next morning, Ethan convened an emergency meeting at the Foundation's headquarters. The room's wide windows overlooked Wacker Drive's plane tree canopy, yet no one observed the view. Arthur Sterling sat at the head, in an impeccable navy suit, perusing a report he had authored. Serena Vance handled her phone, responding to emails with the efficiency of one who turns problems into marketing opportunities. The air conditioning hummed low, creating an artificial chill that could not cool the tension. Ethan entered without greeting and went straight to the point. His voice emerged firmer than he expected. "I will discontinue the partnership with Sterling Construction. Lincoln Park's restoration will proceed by another path." Silence was immediate. Arthur slowly lifted his eyes as if he had misheard. Serena froze mid-sentence. Ethan felt the weight of 2 decades of friendship binding him to Arthur, but also the burden of the inflated margin spreadsheets he secretly analyzed, of climatic contingencies copied from other projects, of shell companies providing basic materials at unrealistic prices. "Is there someone superior?" Arthur asked, not disguising his irritation. The pen in his hand tapped rhythmically on the table, menacingly. "There is someone who performs the work for purpose, not for publicity," Ethan responded. Serena closed her phone with a dry snap. "Ethan, you know the foundation's name depends on solid partnerships. Arthur has credibility. Changing now will only make it seem you don't know what you want. Or it will appear I have finally discovered what I do not want," he replied, meeting her gaze with a resolve he seldom displayed. The light streaming through the window cast a sharp shadow across his features. "I will offer the head of the restoration project to Helena Rodriguez, a gardener residing on the South Side, without influential backing, without an international resume, but with genuine, tangible work in her hands." Arthur let out a brief, humorless laugh. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, like someone who had witnessed this scenario before and knew its inevitable conclusion. "Are you serious? A condominium gardener? Ethan, this is institutional suicide." "It is a technical decision, and an ethical one," Ethan responded. "I desire someone who plants out of necessity, not for the sake of networking." Serena attempted one final maneuver. Her tone shifted, becoming soft, almost maternal. "Consider the press. Consider the sponsors. They invest in the image, Ethan. If you jeopardize that, then they were not investing in the project," he interrupted. "They were merely purchasing a storefront. And I am no longer selling one." Arthur abruptly rose, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through the vacant room. He looked at Ethan with an expression akin to disdain. Yet, Ethan recognized it as disguised fear. "You will regret this," Arthur said quietly, before departing. Helena received the telephone call on a Thursday afternoon, while pruning a hedge at a condominium in Lincoln Park. The number was unfamiliar. She answered with her hand soiled with earth, the cell phone wedged between her shoulder and ear. The afternoon sun beat down on her back, hot, heavy. Sweat trickled down her neck, causing her uniform to cling to her skin. "Helena Rodriguez?" a masculine voice inquired, calm, yet with an undercurrent of contained urgency. "That's me. Who is speaking?" "Ethan Montgomery, from the Montgomery Foundation. I wish to discuss a potential project." She nearly disconnected the call, assuming it was a prank. The Montgomery Foundation was for the affluent, for charity galas with cocktails and photographers. It was not a place where a gardener in a soiled uniform belonged. Yet the voice persisted, polite, unhurried. There was an authenticity to it, distinct from the hollow promises she had encountered previously. "I observed you crossing Michigan Avenue yesterday, in the rain. I thought, that woman understands what genuine labor entails." Helena ceased pruning. Her shears remained suspended in the air, forgotten. Her heart quickened, though she could not discern if it was from burgeoning hope or lingering suspicion? And what precisely do you require? I wish for you to undertake the restoration of Lincoln Park as project lead, with a fixed salary, your own team, and creative autonomy within a transparent budget. The shears slipped from her grasp, clattering onto the concrete ground. The metallic sound resonated through the vacant garden. Leo, who had been assisting with the tool cart, looked at her with alarm. Helena took a deep breath, attempting to process the words she had just heard. Lincoln Park, project lead, fixed salary. These were terms that did not align with her reality, with her worn-out shoes, with her overdue bills. Are you truly serious? Completely. She did not respond immediately. She knew such offers often arrived with fine print, with pitfalls disguised as generosity. She had witnessed people used as human billboards, as a token of inclusion in publicity campaigns that lasted only as long as a photograph. I need to consider it, she finally stated, her voice emerging more tremulous than she had intended. Of course, but please, consider swiftly. The park cannot wait any longer. When she ended the call, Helena remained standing amidst the garden, feeling the afternoon sun warm her nape. The scent of freshly cut grass rose from the ground, mingling with the sweet fragrance of the azalea she had planted last week. Leo approached slowly, as if fearing to break a spell. What is it, sis? I believe someone just offered me the work of my life, or perhaps the trap of my life. I am not yet certain which. That evening, seated in the kitchen of their Englewood home, Helena recounted everything to Grandma Sophia. Her grandmother listened in silence, stirring sugar into her coffee with slow, circular, hypnotic motions. The spoon gently clinked against the old porcelain cup, creating a rhythm that brought a measure of calm. When Helena finished, Grandma Sophia looked at her with those tired eyes that had witnessed everything. What frightens you? That you might not be good enough, or that you might be too good, and they would notice? Helena offered no reply. She did not need to. Her grandmother always knew, always had, ever since Helena was a child, returning from school with scuffed knees from tussles with boys who mocked her family's humble dwelling. The initial meeting transpired in a windowless room in the basement of the Montgomery Foundation headquarters. Helena arrived half an hour early, dressed in clean jeans and a white blouse Grandma Sophia had meticulously ironed, ensuring not a single crease. She carried an old folder filled with sketches, notes, and photographs of gardens she had cultivated. Her hands were damp with perspiration. The security guard at the reception desk eyed her from head to toe before granting entry, as if she were an interloper in such a setting. She felt the weight of that gaze, the silent distrust that had always shadowed her. The hallway leading to the meeting room stretched long, muffled by gray carpeting that absorbed footsteps. Abstract paintings that conveyed nothing of substance adorned the walls. The entire space bore the scent of air conditioning and aged wealth. Helena tightened her grip on the folder's strap, recalling her grandmother's words, "You are not seeking a favor, you are offering your work." Ethan greeted her personally. He wore no suit, merely a light blue linen shirt and chinos. His eyes were dark, yet not guarded. There was a discernible curiosity, intermingled with something akin to relief. "Helena, thank you for coming." She clasped his hand with a resolve firmer than he had anticipated. "I am here because I need to truly understand what you seek. For if this is merely for a photo opportunity, I appreciate the offer. But it is not for me." Ethan offered a smile. It was not the smile of one accustomed to being challenged, but rather of one who had been anticipating it. "Please, have a seat. Let us converse." Ethan Montgomery opens a folder with reports from previous projects. He displays inflated spreadsheets, shell company contracts, and amendments that never materialized into vibrant green spaces. Helena reads in silence, her jaw clenched. With each line, her anger mounts. It is not anger at him, but at the system allowing this, transforming public initiatives into private ventures. She closes the folder, looks at him. "And why did you allow this to happen, Mr. Montgomery?" The question is direct, unvarnished. Ethan feels the impact. No one had ever asked him with such candor. "I trusted the wrong people. I believed money could solve everything. And until yesterday, I did not know people like you existed." Helena does not soften at the elegant reply. She has heard too many in her life. "What guarantees I won't be another in the line of people you use and discard?" "Nothing," he admits. His honesty is stark, unadorned. "Only my word. If you accept, I will provide genuine working conditions, full transparency, an open budget, freedom to hire whoever you trust. If I fail you, you can leave and tell the entire city what I have done." Helena takes a deep breath. There is something in his voice that sounds different from the hollow promises she knows. Perhaps it is weariness, or perhaps it is truth. "All right, but I have conditions." "State them." "Transparency in processes. Public disclosure of costs per phase. Open selection of local vendors, without favoritism. If I discover anyone is stealing, I will report it, no matter who." Ethan extends his hand. "Agreed." As she shakes his hand for the second time, she senses something has shifted. Not complete trust, but the genesis of something that could evolve. It is the beginning of a partnership neither yet comprehends the full cost of. The reaction to the new arrangement is swift. Arthur Sterling, feeling betrayed, mobilizes contacts within the Loop's law offices. In less than a week, a lawsuit halts the project, arguing risk to property integrity and inexperience of the new manager. The press, fueled by anonymous dossiers, questions the choice of a gardener without an international resume to lead an emblematic project. The articles are laced with thinly veiled irony, as if Helena's competence were a ready joke. Serena Vance, for her part, is not merely defending a communication strategy. She fears the rupture with Arthur will close doors to sponsorships that for years secured events, magazine covers, and penthouse party invitations. She activates her contacts at City Hall. Aldermen connected to Arthur begin demanding formal explanations. The Chicago Park District threatens to revoke permits. The siege tightens from all sides, silent but efficient. Meanwhile, Helena began the work in the most tangible way possible. She visited every section of Lincoln Park, conversed with the longtime gardeners, noted clogged drains and poorly pruned trees, photographing flower beds to document the before. Her steps were measured, deliberate. She knew she was being watched, judged, expected to falter. Every decision had to be defensible, every expenditure unequivocally transparent. She called on gardeners from nearby communities, Englewood, Pilsen, Bronzeville, hired single mothers with nursery experience, secured saplings from small growers in rural Illinois or Wisconsin, and renegotiated prices with suppliers willing to align payments with the project timeline, avoiding inflated costs. Each conversation was an earnest negotiation. No one pledged what they could not deliver. No one charged for what held no true value. Ethan observed closely, not as an overseer, but as one needing to relearn trust. Their understanding was forged through the exchange of lucid justifications. She explained her preference for native redbud and river birch saplings over imported palms. He illustrated how the budget gained crucial flexibility by eliminating intermediaries. A certain resonance unexpectedly grew between them. Not romantic attraction, not yet. It was respect. blossoming from shared truths. One afternoon, walking through the park's central concourse, Helena paused before a broken bench. The timber was rotted, the screws rusted. "Here," she stated, gesturing to the uneven cobblestone ground. "This is where we commence. There is no point in planting a tree if the very ground cannot sustain its roots." Ethan noted everything on his phone. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely valuable, not as the man who merely signed checks, but as the man who was learning. And learning, he discovered, offered a deeper satisfaction than simply commanding. The anticipated assault from Arthur and Serena intensified as residents began endorsing the project, witnessing tangible changes within days. Leveled flower beds, removed refuse, a small educational nursery constructed from repurposed pallets. Serena drafted an official memo highlighting Helena's supposed errors, citing the removal of a makeshift fence as if it were an act of vandalism. The text was calculated, insidious, cloaked in a guise of technical concern. Arthur, in parallel, sought out technical experts to sign affidavits discrediting the adopted methods. He located an agricultural engineer willing to declare that the manager's lack of institutional experience jeopardizes the project's long-term sustainability. The document was leaked to the press. A newspaper ran a story under the headline, "Montgomery Foundation Gambles on Amateurism." The accompanying photograph depicted Helena crouched in the soil, soiled, as if grime were synonymous with incompetence. Helena read the article on her phone screen. Seated on the makeshift wooden bench at the project site, her stomach churned. It was not the first time she had been called an amateur, but it was the first time the insult came in print, with a photograph, signed by people who claimed to be experts. Her hands trembled holding the phone. She thought of Grandma Sophia, of Leo, of how many times she had been underestimated simply because she was born into poverty. Leo, who was helping to catalog photos, noticed his sister's grim expression. "What is it?" She showed him her phone. Leo read in silence. His jaw clenched. When he finished, he looked at her with unconcealed anger in his eyes. "This is a lie." "I know, but a well-told lie becomes the truth, Leo." Grandma Sophia, who had arrived by bus to bring a home-cooked meal, sat beside her granddaughter and placed a hand on her shoulder. The hand was rough, calloused from years of doing laundry for others, but the touch was soft. "Are you going to give up?" Helena did not answer immediately. She looked at the nursery she had established, at the redbud saplings beginning to sprout, at the gardeners working with such care, as if each plant were their own child. She saw there the beginning of something greater than herself, greater than the opinion of those who had never soiled their hands with earth. "I do not know if I have the strength for this fight, Grandma." "Then stop fighting," Grandma Sophia replied, her voice as firm as it had always been. "And keep working." The work speaks for itself. Helena looked at her grandmother and felt something reorder itself within her chest. Grandma Sophia was right. She always had been. The answer was not in refuting headlines, but in continuing to plant, in making the park speak for her. It was while searching for documents that could protect her that Helena found something she was not looking for. In the Foundation's archives, digitized as visual identity reference, were old sketches of Lincoln Park, drawings of tree shadows along walkways, of curved benches welcoming groups and solitary figures, of flower beds forming wind corridors. The stroke was recognizable. She knew every line, every curve, because she was the one who had made those drawings. Her heart pounded. Her hands froze over the mouse. For a moment, she thought she was mistaken, that her memory was playing tricks. But she was not. She would recognize that stroke anywhere, because she had spent entire nights drawing, erasing, redrawing, until every line expressed exactly what she wanted it to say. Years earlier, Helena had submitted a set of proposals for a park revitalization bid. She had never received a response. She had kept proof of submission, automated emails, copies of the material. There, in the reference folder, were her drawings, stripped of authorship, used as inspiration in official foundation presentations. As if inspiration justified theft. As if inspiration were a magic word that erased authorship. Her hands trembled as she opened each file. She cross-referenced dates, messages, and presentation versions. In an internal bulletin signed by Serena Vance, she found generic mentions of community-submitted inspirational materials, conspicuously lacking names. From her email inbox, she retrieved the protocol of her original submission and the ticket number, which had been unceremoniously archived as ineligible. Ineligible, yet evidently valuable enough to be misappropriated. Helena did not weep. She did not raise her voice. Instead, a cold, dense fury ascended from her gut to her throat, pulsating with quiet intensity. She had endured theft before, through bribes, delayed wages, and hollow promises. But this felt distinct. This was the theft of the one thing truly her own, the tangible manifestation of her intellect and effort, the creative product of her mind and hands. She meticulously saved everything onto a USB drive. Screenshots were taken, dates meticulously organized. Then, for the first time since commencing this endeavor, she telephoned Ethan outside of business hours. Her voice emerged with a sharpness she had not intended. "I need to speak with you, immediately." Ethan recognized from the uncharacteristic inflection in her tone that the matter extended far beyond horticulture. "Where are you?" "At the foundation office, alone." "I will be there in 20 minutes. Upon his arrival, Helena was seated in his chair, the laptop open. Her eyes reddened, not from tears, but from the raw containment of fury. She rotated the screen towards him without buttering a word. Ethan read in silence. With each passing line, the composure on his face visibly shifted. When he finished, he closed his eyes for a long moment, as if requiring time to process the sheer scale of the deception. "Helena, I had no idea." "I am aware that you did not know," she responded, her voice unwavering. "However, someone did, and they exploited my work as if it were mere recyclable refuse." Ethan felt something fracture within him. It was not merely the betrayal by Serena. It was the crushing realization that the very system he had, perhaps inadvertently, helped construct, had effectively rendered individuals like Helena invisible. "What is your desired course of action?" "I seek justice," she stated, yet not the kind that garners sensational headlines. "I wish for people to acknowledge the origin of every concept, every design, every carefully selected plant. I demand that my name be positioned precisely where it rightfully belongs." Ethan drew a deep breath. "Then we shall pursue it, together." The public hearing was scheduled for a Monday at precisely 10 o'clock in the Chicago City Council chambers. Helena arrived an hour early, clad in the same unassuming jeans and white blouse she had worn to their initial meeting. Grandma Sophia and Leo accompanied her. Ethan stood steadfastly by her side, clutching a briefcase brimming with documents. Arthur Sterling and Serena Vance occupied the opposing side of the room, ensconced amongst dark-suited attorneys who conferred in hushed tones, projecting an air of absolute control. The committee president formally opened the session. Helena was called first to testify. She rose, walked towards the microphone, and felt the palpable weight of every gaze. The chamber was filled to capacity with reporters, curious onlookers, and ardent supporters. The very air felt thick, charged with anticipation. She drew a deep, fortifying breath, closed her eyes for a fleeting second, and recalled Grandma Sophia's resonant words. "Your work speaks for itself. My name is Helena Rodriguez. I am a gardener. I have worked with the earth for 15 years. I do not possess a university degree, but I have experience, and I have proof of what I have accomplished." Her voice emerged steady, unwavering. She activated the projector. On the screen, the old sketches appeared, displayed alongside the Montgomery Foundation's documents. The dates, the emails, the protocols that had been disregarded. These designs were created by me in 2019. They were submitted to the Montgomery Foundation in response to a public request for proposals. I never received a response, yet they were used, without credit, without recognition. A hush fell over the room. Several council members leaned forward, striving for a clearer view. Arthur Sterling shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Serena Vance gazed at the floor, her hands clasped in her lap as if in prayer. Helena continued, indicating each image, explaining with technical details that no attorney could dismantle. "I am not here to appeal for sympathy. I am here to demonstrate my competence and to prove that I require no patron to execute my work with integrity." When she concluded, the applause began slowly, but soon swelled, filling the Chicago City Council chambers. Ethan Montgomery rose, requesting to speak. "I am Ethan Montgomery, owner of the foundation, and I am here to accept responsibility for what has transpired. Helena deserved credit, and from this day forward, she shall receive it." Arthur Sterling attempted to dismiss the evidence as malicious interpretations. His voice rang out too loudly, too defensively. Serena Vance tried to reduce the discussion to the importance of protecting the project's reputation, but the community, clearly informed about the stakes, had already taken a side. Residents, fellow gardeners, local suppliers offered their testimonies. Each voice was a brick, constructing a truth that could no longer be ignored. The city administration, initially seemingly inclined to grant concessions to the powerful, realized the political risk in overlooking such compelling evidence. At the close of the hearing, the lawsuit was dismissed. The contract with Arthur Sterling was terminated. Serena Vance lost her position due to a breach of trust. There was no boisterous celebration. Instead, a profound silence, understood by all as the severing of a lifeline that had sustained many. Helena exited the room without looking back, yet she felt, for the first time in a long while, that her name truly belonged to her. With the project now unimpeded, the plan recommenced with an even deeper commitment to the city. Hiring prioritized labor from the park's immediate vicinity with clear contracts and straightforward objectives. Re-established drainage, accessible pathways, native species resilient to Chicago's climate, such as redbud and river birch, offering genuine shade, and benches crafted by local carpenters using certified lumber. Every decision was documented, every expenditure justified, every process transparent for public scrutiny. The educational nursery expanded, drawing in local schools. Children arrived on yellow school buses on Tuesdays and Thursdays, their eyes wide with wonder at the seedlings they would soon plant themselves. Helena organized workshops where she explained, with infinite patience, how a seed becomes a tree, how water travels through roots, how shade protects life. Leo found an internship there, drawing him closer to a professional future that had once seemed improbable. He possessed a natural way with children, the patience to repeat explanations, and an infectious enthusiasm. Grandma Sophia observed the transformations from a safe distance, relieved to see her granddaughter had not been swallowed by empty promises. Sometimes, on Sundays, she would visit the park, sit on one of the new benches, and watch Helena at work. She said nothing. She didn't need to. The pride resided there, in her subtle smile, in the way she squeezed her granddaughter's hand before departing. Helena solidified her team based on merit and commitment. Her name ceased to be a campaign trophy, evolving into a benchmark of consistent work. Between her and Ethan, an affection quietly emerged within the daily routines of reports and garden beds, in the convergence of principles and a trust rebuilt on substantiated facts. There was no moment of romantic turning point, no cinematic kiss. Instead, there was a slow, careful, respectful drawing closer. One afternoon, after everyone had departed, Ethan and Helena remained alone in the nursery. He was watering redbud seedlings. She was arranging soil around the roots. The silence between them was comfortable, unhurried. The late afternoon sun filtered through the canopy slits, casting streaks of light across the earthen floor. "You changed my life," Ethan said, not looking at her. His voice was low, almost self-conscious. Helena paused her work in the soil. She wiped her hands on her pants, leaving dark smudges on the denim. "I only did my job. No, you taught me that dignity lies in what one does, not in what one possesses." She finally looked at him. There was something in his eyes she could not yet name, but recognized. It was the same feeling she experienced when gazing at the revitalized park. "And you taught me that not all wealthy individuals are, well, what I thought they were," she replied, smiling for the first time since the hearing. Ethan laughed. It was a light, clear sound he had not produced in years. Helena chuckled too. And in that moment, watering redbud seedlings as the sun set over Chicago, they understood they had constructed something greater than friendship, yet perhaps less than grand narratives of love often promised. They had built a partnership, and partnership, they realized, was more enduring. When Lincoln Park was reborn, it was not the result of an isolated gesture, but rather the sum of step-by-step justified decisions, the courage to break comfortable agreements, and the insistence on acknowledging authorship their anonymity was once preferred. The city, which had incredulously witnessed the clash of narratives, reclaims the outcome. Families return with beach chairs and kites. Street artists find spaces beneath the newly planted trees. Small vendors reorganize themselves along the leveled cobblestone paths. Ethan, finally, ceases to view the park as a mere mission and begins to perceive it as an intrinsic part of the city's very life. He goes there on Saturday mornings, not to supervise, but simply to walk. Sometimes he encounters Helena conversing with visitors, explaining the name of a tree, teaching a child to recognize seeds. He remains at a distance, observing, feeling something akin to profound gratitude. Helena, stabilized and respected, no longer needs to brave the rain in worn-out shoes. Yet she never forgets the day she was seen for what sustained her, even when the very ground tested her resilience. She purchases new shoes, yes, but continues to wear the old ones occasionally, as a poignant reminder that dignity is not contingent upon outward appearance. Sundays gradually became a routine for her and Ethan. They walk through the park together, noting details, listening to visitor feedback, conversing with the gardeners. There is no longer a boundary between work and shared life. They simply exist there, side by side, constructing something that cannot be bought. The profound certainty that belonging is choosing, daily, the path of work that genuinely honors its doer. Leo begins studying agronomy at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, UIUC, having earned a full scholarship through his park internship. He arrives home on Friday evenings, tired, but with eyes shining with the fervor of one who has discovered his true vocation. Grandma Sophia, relieved and brimming with pride, stitches a patchwork quilt to present to her granddaughter on the day the educational nursery is officially inaugurated. The quilt is crafted from fabrics of old garments, memories thoughtfully transformed into warmth. The official inauguration takes place on a September morning under a strong sun and a clear sky. There is no red carpet, no lengthy speeches. Helena plants a redbud tree in the center of the nursery with her own hands, while children from public schools observe in a respectful circle. Ethan stands beside her, holding the shovel. When the tree is planted, Helena rises, wipes her hands on her pants, and gazes at the small, gathered multitude. "This park is not mine. It is yours. Take care of it." It is all she says. It is all that needs to be profoundly articulated. Arthur Sterling loses not only the contract, but also the aura of inevitability that had protected him. He faces accountability for frauds that were once mere whispers. His name becomes synonymous with schemes, and his former allies vanish, one by one. He attempts to re-establish himself with new ventures in other cities, yet the shadow of the public hearing follows him. Trust has evaporated. In a vacant bar on a Thursday evening, he drinks alone, gazing at his silent cell phone. The contacts who once responded instantly now leave messages unread. Solitude tastes of cheap whiskey and belated regret. Serena Vance, confronted by her shortcuts, learns the hard way that reputation cannot be sustained on fabricated narratives built upon others' work. She loses her employment, contracts, and friends. She attempts to establish an independent communication agency, but clients vanish upon discovering her past. She relocates to rural Illinois, to a small town where no one recognizes her name, far from Wacker Drive, the galas, and her past self. She works as a freelancer for small local businesses, charging rates that would have previously made her scoff. Yet slowly, she learns that honest labor carries a different weight. It brings no glamour, but it brings peaceful sleep. For Ethan, the severance from Arthur and Serena brings relief, but also a profound solitude. He discerns that many of his erstwhile friends were, in essence, business associates disguised as companions. Gradually, he reconstructs his social circle founded on truth, not expediency. He attends community meetings in Englewood, converses with residents of overlooked neighborhoods, learning to listen without imposing preconceived solutions. He discovers that life exists beyond the penthouses of River North, that conversations more compelling than financial reports await him. And he discovers, to his own surprise, the possibility of loving someone without attempting to rescue them. Helena does not require salvation. She needs room to flourish, recognition for her contributions, a partnership unburdened by suffocation. And Ethan learns to offer precisely this: presence without possessiveness, support without control. He comprehends at last that to love is not to shield from the world, but to walk alongside another through it. One evening, following an extended day at the park, Ethan and Helena dine at a modest diner in Logan Square. There is no imported wine, no French menu. There is cold beer, a basket of crispy appetizers, and conversation about their day. Ethan settles the bill without ostentation. Helena offers her gratitude without embarrassment. They walk down the street, unhurried, and upon reaching the corner where their paths diverge, Ethan inquires, "May I see you again tomorrow?" Helena smiles. "You see me every day at the park. That's not what I meant." She knows. She had always known. Then yes, you may. A year later, Lincoln Park was unrecognizable. Flower beds bloomed in seasonal hues. Redbud, oak, and river birch trees, alongside vibrant flora, created a living palette that drew photographers, families, and couples. Accessible trails allowed wheelchair users and the elderly to navigate autonomously. The educational nursery welcomed public schools 3 times a week, teaching children to plant, to nurture, to anticipate. New benches crafted by carpenters from Englewood, interpretive signs written in clear language, sufficient waste receptacles, and clean restrooms were all present. Helena was recognized as one of Chicago's leading landscape designers, yet she declined invitations for luxury projects in gated communities. She preferred to work with schools, public squares, and communal spaces where the impact felt greater and more enduring. Her name appeared in architecture articles, specialized magazines, and university lectures. Yet she continued to wear the same olive green uniform, the same simple, though now new, shoes. She still answered her cell phone with hands stained by soil. Ethan restructured the Montgomery Foundation on principles of transparency and community participation. He issued objective calls for proposals, ensuring submissions from underserved communities no longer required patronage for consideration. His office ceased being an isolated glass tower, instead transforming into a gathering space for open meetings and collective decisions. He learned to share power, to heed voices once silenced, recognizing that money without just direction was waste. Between him and Helena, their affection matured slowly, unhurriedly. There was no marriage proposal, no promise of eternity. There was, instead, a daily choice, the choice to be together, to plant together, to build together. They did not share a home, nor a bank account, nor did they follow a traditional relationship script. Yet, they met every day at the park, dined together on Tuesdays, and spent Sundays walking the trails they had helped cultivate. On the 2nd anniversary of the park's restoration, they jointly planted a redbud tree in the central flower bed. No speeches were given. They simply placed the sapling, watered it, and settled its roots. Journalists were present, but they asked that no photos be taken. This moment was not for headlines. It was simply theirs. Grandma Sophia, on a nearby bench, watched with a smile carrying decades of struggle. Leo, beside her, took a photo anyway, not to post or display, but to remember that justice, though delayed, often arrives. And when it arrived, it smelled of damp earth and the color of blossoming redbuds. It bore the calloused hands of those who labored without surrender. It held the steadfast gaze of those who knew belonging was not a matter of wealth, but of choice. The thriving park, the strengthened bonds, and the accounts brought to light concluded the narrative without loose ends, with every opened path traversed to its completion, and each choice anchored in reasons the entire city could comprehend. That September afternoon, with the newly planted redbud and the sun setting over Chicago, Helena and Ethan stood there, side by side, looking at the tree that would grow long after they were gone. And they understood, without needing to say, that they had built something greater than the two of them. They had built a future. And the future, they discovered, is the only thing worth planting.